Let's have a look at the best dual-purpose breeds in every category. Most of our viewers are interested in getting as much from their livestock as they possibly can. After all, if you're going to keep cattle to sell the beef, why not get some milk to bring to the shelf while you're at it? The same holds true for the goats, and yes, even the sheep. If you know what breed to look for, they'll have milk too. What about the chickens and the ducks? They don't need to serve just one purpose either. Every livestock animal in existence has more than one product it can deliver. Some just happen to be better at multitasking than others. And we're here to tell you who's top of the food chain. So let's get into it. Starting with chickens, this is already kicking off to be a challenging species to bring down to just two breeds that best fit the criteria. You have to understand that we've made an art of breeding all livestock to be as well suited as possible for every purpose imaginable, but none more so than chickens. And our feathery friends have risen to the occasion of being outstanding at both egg and meat production so marvelously that there are many breeds that fit the top spot so well that it would be a shame to just settle on two. Your options are only limited by your climate and general needs, like the amount of space and area-specific diseases that you have to work with. Let's start with climate. For the colder climates, the Buff Orpington from England is a great choice for muggy, wet and cold climates that get deep winter snow. They're friendly, sociable and very manageable for both the small backyard flock as well as larger operations. Females slaughter at 8 pounds and the males comfortably hit the 10-pound weight, if they're allowed to grow out fully. Laying around 280 eggs a year, they're definitely up there as far as production goes. But the Wyandotte chickens are probably our favorite of the cold climate chickens. Renowned for their friendly natures, long production years and good foraging capabilities, they're a favorite amongst small holdings. Wyandottes lay around 200 eggs a year, or 1 egg per hen every 2 days, so they aren't the absolute best layers, but they're so easy to keep and feed themselves so well when they're allowed to that you can keep a larger flock to make up for the slightly less eggs you'll get for a single hen. They slaughter between 6 and 7 pounds apiece, and when eggs and carcass weight are taken into account, the Wyandottes are definitely more suited for the homesteads that need a breed that is a little more manageable both in size and temperament, and they come in a charming array of colors that'll appeal to the family. For the mild to warm climates, the Rhode Island Red stands superior as the best all-around chicken on all fronts. They're very consistent layers, and even though the stats will tell you that 280 eggs a year per hen is to be expected, a good hen in her prime can go up to 310 a year. Their weights are equally consistent, with the girls coming in at 7 pounds and a fully grown rooster going up to 9 pounds. Rhodies are great for both small and large-scale operations. They're cheeky, but just enough to give them personality without being violent, and they've cemented themselves as the favorite homesteader chicken in the past few decades. But Rhodies' production will go down in the high desert or tropical heat. Don't get us wrong, they handle it just fine if they have enough water and shelter. They just do better in mild to warm climates. The Australorp is the better choice if the climate is hot. You wouldn't think that they'd handle high heat as well as they do with those striking black feathers, but they've held up fantastically so far. Their egg production is on the same level as the Rhode Island Reds, but they do slaughter at a little higher weight on average. Officially, 7 to 9 pounds is what's expected, but males can go up to 10 pounds every now and then. Both the Australorp and the Rhode Island Reds are very close in statistics, but the Australorp has a lot more spice to them than their calm brown cousins. They are much better placed on smaller scale operations, because being crammed into a space that is cramped or with little to no forage freedom available to them will keep them from working off that excess energy. Inevitably, this will lead to vicious fights and overbred hens. So, they're not for the novice chicken owner. Moving on to the ducks, there really are only 3 options on the table if you want good egg production to go with the meat. Indian runner ducks and Pekin ducks are by far the most popular choice for meat production, but they lay a decent amount of eggs too. We group them together because they're so close to each other in all lines of production, and they both prefer warm, even tropical climates. Both can be expected to lay about 300 eggs a year, with the Indian runners having the slight edge with 30 or so more eggs per hen. Both slaughter between 6 and 8 pounds each. Runners and Pekins are a little better adapted to hot climates and don't require as much water as the other duck breeds. They'd much rather forage when given the chance to do so. You can add pest control to their production purpose too. There are few birds as good at keeping insects and slugs at bay without causing too much damage to your crops. Khaki Campbell ducks are more compact, but better suited to cold climates, and they're a little friendlier and not quite as loud as our first two options. Slaughtering at 3 to 5 pounds, you can add another pound to that if you're willing to grow them out completely. The 300 eggs they'll supply you with yearly is of an excellent quality, and they round off their place on our list by being very tolerant and friendly to humans, if they're raised with the intention of making them more sociable. Sheep can be quadruple-purpose animals, supplying us with meat, wool, and yes, even milk. Sheep's milk isn't very popular outside of Europe in the high-end restaurant industry, which is a real shame. They deliver an excellent dairy that can go a long way if you do your marketing right. Since not a lot of you will be looking into milking breeds, we've selected only one breed that checks all the boxes. The British milking sheep can give you approximately 240 gallons of milk in a single lactation period. Their wool is considered above average and they bring a solid 200-pound carcass at most. These fluffy white beauties are huge. The carcass is a little leaner than you'd expect from mutton, but not enough to affect the quality. The meat is tender and just as valuable as any other mutton. Moving away from the milk, there really is no better sheep for wool and mutton than the ever-popular Merinos. The wool is probably the most sellable on the market of all the breeds, just because they're so consistent with the high quality that they deliver. It's very rare to find a Merino that deviates away from the norm with their fleece. Although they're more often kept for their wool, the mutton is just as well received. It's not like you'll ever have trouble finding a buyer for mutton, and we'd wager that it's one of the most marketable proteins at your disposal. When fully grown, you can expect anywhere between 150 to 200 pounds of weight from a ram. Unlike the British milk sheep, they are highly adaptable to almost any weather condition, very good at foraging for their own feed, and they're very hardy and healthy animals to care for. We also are biased and have had Merinos with the best personalities. Now we've come to the mighty and feisty little goats. There are some breeds that can deliver cashmere, but they're rare, expensive, and quite frankly, getting sheep for cashmere is much more feasible, so we'll skip the fleece-bearing breeds for this round. Saanens are the obvious milk-producing breed, and yeah, they do produce the most milk of all the goat breeds, but their meat is just average. Instead, we'd lean more toward the La Mancha goats that give an extremely marketable 230 gallons of milk in a lactation period. That's only 10 gallons less than the Saanens. But it's the meat that gives them the edge here. La Manchas have something that most goats don't have: fat. Now look, it's not like they've got layer upon layer of fat exactly. All goats fall in the lean meat category after all. But they have enough to cause some marbling. When the carcass is hung next to a sheep's, the two weigh and look so much alike, you probably won't be able to tell the difference on the hook, and that translates to the plate too. It's one of the few breeds that can be compared to mutton. For our second option, we were a little stuck between the Nubian goats and the Alpines. Normally, Nubians would be the first choice because they're so much bigger and they have a decent amount of fat. But the Nubians have a drawback that lost them the second place spot. They don't do well in the cold. The Alpine goats, on the other hand, do well in heat and in cold. They're a little more hardy and healthy, and they have nearly the same amount of milk and carcass size, though they are more lean, like the species is known for. Alpines slaughter out at around 130 to 140 pounds, and they bring 750 gallons of milk a year on average. So they definitely bring enough dairy to sell, and they're a little cheaper and more manageable overall. And we can't end this off without looking at our cattle breeds. Now most of the good milkers still deliver a good cut of beef, and it's not like any of the breeds are below average by any means. But with beef, you really want to go for the best amount of marbling you can find. Normally, the prolific milking breeds put most of their fat and energy into their milk, not leaving much for the beef. Lean beef is an acquired taste, and most buyers just aren't looking for leaner cuts. Luckily, there are a few breeds that can manage to produce a good amount of dairy, while leaving just enough fat for their beef. Besides being more tasty for you, it's also one of those factors that can't be overlooked if you're looking to sell to the public. Holstein cattle are almost solely kept for their milk, not surprising since they give off 2,700 gallons of milk during a lactation period. And that's just the average. There are plenty of accounts of good milkers that clock in at 3,000 gallons. We forget that they have a very good amount of marbling on the carcass too. A bull, when it's been given enough time to grow out fully, slaughters out at 3,000 pounds. Easy. That's an enormous amount of meat, and all of it is well above average. Our second place is a tie between the Simmental and the Gelbviehs. Again, it's a matter of what climate you're in, because outside of the weather, the two are very similar in their production. Let's start with the Gelbvieh. This large breed is for the hot, humid, and even arid climates, meaning that they won't do well in the cold. They give a good 1,200 gallons of milk per cow, and slaughter at 1,000 to 1,300 pounds for the adult bulls. There's a good amount of marbling and tenderness to be expected from their beef, putting them inside the restaurant quality market. We really like the Gelbvieh for their forgeability and general hardiness. They really are a very easy-tempered battle to raise, that won't require much babying from you. The Simmentals have received a lot of attention on this channel lately, and the praise is absolutely deserved. They are very much a cold climate cattle, even being able to brave the icy Swiss Alps. If they did better in the hotter climates, this wouldn't have been a competition at all because they're so well-rounded in every other way that they'd take all the first-place prizes. For starters, Simmentals are enormous. Yet as massive and muscular as these animals are, they're very chilled out and genuinely fond of humans. They run well with other livestock and are easy to train into a feeding and milking schedule. Bulls slaughter out at 1,000 to 1,300 pounds apiece, and yes, there's a good amount of marbling on their bodies. Their meat-to-bone ratio is higher than most other breeds, so you're more bang for your buck compared to other breeds. Their milk production beats out the Gelbvieh by a landslide. A cow in her prime will comfortably give you 2,200 gallons of milk during a lactation period, and that's just the average. The more prolific milkers can add 200 gallons to that. Like we said, the Simmentals, if it weren't for their intolerance to heat, would have taken first place easily. But alas, every breed has a purpose, and the Simmentals are here to serve those that are in the northern hemisphere. That brings us to the end of this video. Some of you might have noticed that we've avoided the hogs, quail, turkeys, camels, and maybe even a few others. Pigs are restricted to their meat. Yes, some could argue that lard doesn't fall under that same canopy, but honestly, the two products are so closely related that we'll leave that for you to decide. As for the quail and the turkeys, we are big proponents of them being a very well-rounded production animal, and we do believe that they deserve more attention. Unfortunately, the little quail only have one viable breed for both eggs and meat, the Cornitucks. And the noble turkeys have too many limitations and not enough breeds to make up for those shortcomings. The other livestock, like camels and ostriches, fall under dual-purpose breeds, but they just don't have enough interest driving their products onto our store shelves to mention. But please, if you have any thoughts on the lesser-known breeds, don't hesitate to give us your 2 cents in the comments below. There is no greater source of wisdom than from those who've had experience on the ground. We'd love to hear your takeaways. And while you're at it, why not leave a like and subscribe to the channel? See you next week, bye.